welcome back to the channel. Winter is coming, and today it's episode 3, and that means we're dealing with the Lannisters. So this is our Winds of Winter primer, and we've managed to get round to the Lannisters now. Really interesting house, this one, and we find them in a very unstable position at the moment. The heads of the family are basically no more. We have basically the children, the Lannister children, are struggling to kind of keep control of the lands that they're holding, which is a vast amount of land indeed. We're talking about the Westerlands, which is their ancestral home, the Crownlands through Tommen Baratheon, and also the Riverlands, but that is really more to help the Freys and Peter Baelish. But we all know that basically the Lannisters are the military force in that area at the moment. Let's start with the former head of the house, Tywin Lannister. So last time we saw him, he was in King's Landing, but his status currently is deceased. He was actually shot by Tyrion as he was helped to escape by his brother Jaime and by Varys. So Tywin is no more, and that has really long-reaching implications for the world that we find at the moment. Next up is his brother Kevin. So Kevin basically is really seen as the kind of stable force in the Lannister family. He has been offered to be Hand of the King. He has been kind of the head of the Lannister family after Tywin's death. He's kind of the gel that's holding it all together. But his current location is King's Landing. His current status is, we believe, deceased. He was actually murdered by Varys right at the end of his kind of story arc. He was lured to Pycelle's quarters and he was murdered there. Varys, we do believe, may be looking to install a new king. We'll talk about that in future episodes. But yeah, so unfortunately, Kevin, one of my favourite Lannisters, he is also down as deceased. Next up, we have Lancel. So Lancel is a really interesting character. He has really gone through some changes. He's seen as quite brittle. A lot of his hair has gone grey, and he's had a real hard time of it. He was obviously injured. Now, despite having gone and been married into House Derry to help control some of the lands that Lannisters are trying to keep peace in, he has actually come back to King's Landing and has installed himself in helping the Faith. Now, I think the last time we saw him, he was preparing to protect Cersei Lannister on her Walk of Atonement. And I don't believe we've actually seen him since then, so he is still suspected to be alive and in King's Landing, far from his wife and the lands that he has been granted. Joffrey Baratheon, the former king, now he is deceased. He last seen obviously at King's Landing, the Purple Wedding. So he actually died at the hands of Peter Baelish and Olenna Tyrell as part of their big plot. And because of him, now we have Tommen. So Tommen's current status, he is still alive. He is actually kind of locked up in the Red Keep. He's in a very difficult situation due to his mother and what she's done to the politics of King's Landing. He is installed as a Baratheon, but we all know that's not necessarily true. And he's probably most likely just playing with his kittens at the moment. Let's quickly touch on the wives of the heads of the family. So Joanna Lannister is dead. She obviously died in childbirth, giving us Tyrion Lannister. And Joanna Lannister is assumed still to be alive. I know that Kevin's final thoughts were of his wife and his children, and she is said to be a bit of a recluse, a kind of a homely lady, and she is still in the Westerlands. Next up, let's talk about Marcela. So she is basically in transit at the moment. She has been injured. She was attacked by Sir Aerys Oakheart and Darkstar. So right now we know that there is a bit of a conspiracy going on. They did want to install Marcela to the throne in King's Landing and have her kind of have a bit of Dornic influence in King's Landing through Marcela, but obviously she is now injured and she is on her way back home. And I do get a feeling we're going to get a lot of Marcela-based stories in Winds of Winter, so I think that is one we're going to have to look at kind of more closely in future episodes. Next up, let's talk about the twins, Willem and Martin Lannister. So Willem was actually murdered by Rickard Karstark, and that's in the Storm of Swords following the battle, Robb's battle with the Lannisters. But Martin was actually sent under guard to be exchanged for Robert Glover. Now he, we believe, is going to be married into the Darry family because Lancel has gone back to King's Landing and they're still trying to secure those lands. So he may really appear in Winds of Winter and he might have a part to play in these final couple of books for us. Next up, let's talk about everyone's favourite, Tyrion. So Tyrion's location is currently Slavers Bay, and his status is he's, as always, working on a plan. Now, his current plan is trying to turn kind of Brown Ben Plum's second son mercenary unit onto Daenerys' side. Things are looking like they're about to come to a head, maybe even in the first few chapters of The Winds of Winter in Slavers Bay. There's going to be a battle, and let's hope that the second sons and Tyrion are on the right side. Jaime Lannister, a very interesting character, one that's going through a lot of changes at the moment, but it may not help him. So currently his location is down as the Riverlands, and his status is he is being led by Brienne of Tarth, and we believe to potentially Lady Stoneheart. So things could go really bad for Jaime in the Winds of Winter. Let's hope not. Let's hope he gets a chance to redeem himself and his honour, but things are looking pretty bleak for Jaime Lannister. And finally, let's talk about Cersei Lannister. So current location down as the Red Keep. She was obviously carried back from her Walk of Atonement by a mysterious giant knight. Now she is basically scrubbing herself with horsehair brushes and having dinner with her young son. Her situation is extremely perilous because she is in the company of Varys, who obviously has shot her uncle Kevin in the same manner that Tyrion had shot Tywin, just to make it look like Tyrion is still running around the castle and kind of furthering the madness that Cersei is feeling. Things aren't looking great for the Lannisters, let's be honest. What's going to happen it's going to be really interesting to break it down in future episodes. But that is our little wrap up for House Lannister. Please join me for episode 4 next Wednesday, because that is House Targaryen, and we're going to look at both sides of House Targaryen. So that's going to be a super interesting episode. If you like A Song of Ice and Fire, this is going to be the episode for you. I'll catch you next week.